I'm about to tell you the story of how we went about making For Frog's Sake, which is a very short film. If you choose to watch it, you will only lose 10 minutes of your life. It's actually 10 minutes, 47 seconds, but you know, you can probably turn it off in the last 47 seconds. So if you choose to watch it, you can. And I'm not going to show it tonight because it's currently on ABC iView, and you can look it up later. In case I forget to mention it, it is currently in the frog program, the conference program from tonight. So if you go to frogsvic.org/frogprog23, there's a link there in my little spiel about this talk. So although I'm presenting this tonight, I am one of a team of very strong talent, one of whom is Danielle Wallace, who can't be with us tonight, but also Derek Ho, who is our director, and this is a production that has been made in collaboration with the ABC and with Vic Screen. And I can't mention all the thank yous because there's so many of them, but if you watch the film, you might see them at the end in the credits. So that's well worth watching, if only for that, I'd say. So For Frog's Sake is currently, our tagline is searching for the giant burrowing frog, and it's currently on ABC iView. It looks like that. You can Google For Frog's Sake and you'll find it easy enough anyway. Premiered at the Sydney Film Festival at the beginning of June, it's on iView currently, and it's also going to be on actual real-life free-to-air television on the 18th of August at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon, if you're really keen. So Derek is a friend of mine who I just randomly started talking to at a conference, which is of course how lots of good friendship stories start. And when you're a frog person, as I'm sure most of you are aware, people think it's unusual when you meet them at a bar and they say, "What do you do?" And you say, "I study frogs." I don't understand it, but he's a filmmaker and he thinks that I've got the coolest job in the world, so that's fair enough. And I wouldn't say that we weren't just lucky as well to run into each other that night, because, you know, as in frogging and as in filmmaking, both of those things, luck is really, really important. But luck can also be defined as opportunity meets preparation. And as I've got a history in TV and media as well, I've always got a story up my sleeve. And Derek, being a media person, is always hungry for a story and never too polite not to ask. And at the same time as Derek and I had been, you know, continuing to chat through the time, at the ABC were commissioning a series of shows called Your Planet, short documentaries. And Derek thought, who do I know that could have a Your Planet type story? So he got in touch with me. And he said, "Have you got a frog story to tell, Lynette? You work with frogs." And I said, "No, I don't. I don't work with frogs anymore. But I do happen to still be the president of Frogs Victoria, and I know a young scientist by the name of Danielle Wallace who is amazing, and she has a story to tell about giant burrowing frogs and how she heard one night." Now, Danny is in Darwin, but she did send us a message just like she's some kind of international Oscar award-winning type person, and I'll play it for you now, and I hope you can hear it okay. When it comes to technology, we're really good herpetologists. Here we go. Can you hear it?
In Darwin for the ESA conference. I hope you all have an awesome night at the mini conference, but I'll talk a little bit about our frog film For Frog's Sake. So it premiered at the Sydney Film Festival a few weeks ago, and I was lucky enough to go with the director, Derek, up to see the premiere at the International Sydney Film Festival. So it premiered alongside 10 other short films in the climate and sustainability session, and it was really awesome to see the film up on the big screen with me up there. It was a bit strange, but yeah, to show our frog film to everyone in the audience was a super magical moment actually, and to see it in context with the other 10 films that are all in some way involved in the environment or sustainability is really interesting. So there was films about Indigenous involvement in bringing back the totem animals, and in the Northern Territory there was films about the fires in the Hazelwood mine and how that continued to impact public health. And yeah, it was just really cool to see all the different inspiring work that's going on. in the environmental sector and seeing all those translated into really beautiful short films. So we were very lucky to be able to see it. We hope that For Frog's Sake kind of shows the cool things you can get involved in science and conservation and show kind of the different directions you can take. So we're out in the bush looking for frogs, but then we're also in the lab looking at how we detect chytrid fungus in lab animals. And the overall goal is to hopefully conserve the giant burrowing frog into the future with some help from the team at Zoos Vic and ARI. So they're continuing that monitoring now and that captive breeding program that's going on at the zoo. So that's really exciting, and I'm very privileged to be able to contribute in some small way to this film and to the conservation of the giant burrowing frog is really, really rewarding and kind of like a highlight of my career. So if you get a chance, watch it. It's on ABC iView, and it will be premiering on the ABC on the 19th of August, just after Landline. So we hope you enjoy it. We hope you enjoy the frogs that are in there. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much for being polite enough to just sit quietly while you can't hear that for 2 minutes. It will be when all the recordings from tonight will go on the website, and if you are that keen to hear what Danny's got to say, you'll be able to hear it there for sure. No, stop. Stop. All right, good. So, one of the interesting things about working in media, but having a background in science, is that is a really, really awkward fence to sit on. That's a really fine wire to walk along. And I did a wildlife biology PhD. I've got a master's in salamander ecology and an undergraduate degree in biology and environmental science, all really sciencey science stuff, right? But my heart was always in science communication, was always in television, and always wanted to work in the media. But of course, science is also what I live and breathe, right? So it's a really interesting situation to be in when somebody says they want to make a film, and you have to put yourself in this position where you are able to let go of the creative side of things and try and control what you can when it comes to the science. It's very, very easy to get swept along in the whole media hype thing that goes on, and Derek would phone me up and he'd say, hey, so what's the most amazing thing about this, and why do people want to save the frogs, and what can we say this and can we say that? And I'd say, well, lots of those things aren't true, and you know, we wanted to find a way to tell this story that was really going to make the audience want to watch it. You know, it's television, people have to want to watch it. We have to really be sensational in some respects, but at the same time, pretending that we were going to look for the world's most rare frog in the wilderness was just not going to cut it, because that wasn't strictly what we were doing. And trying to find that balance between the story that we wanted to tell that was going to win all the awards and become the most sensational viral video ever versus actually telling a true story is a very fine line to walk. And actually Derek was really great to work with in that he was very keen to be accurate and to be truthful and to tell our story and not just a story that would be sensational, which is really good. Some of the things that we struggled with were things like, you know, the giant burrowing frog listed as threatened or vulnerable, but endangered sounds much better, and rare sounds better as well. And I had to explain to Derek that the definition of rare isn't that simple. And even though he thought he knew what rare meant and he knew what species meant and those sorts of things, when you actually come down to the nuts and bolts of making a film about that stuff, it then becomes a bit complicated, and you want to use words that the general public are going to understand, and they understand that endangered is a critical situation, right? They understand the importance of an animal that's endangered. And if you say vulnerable, what does that really mean? Because frogs are vulnerable, of course they are. They've got soft skin and they're small and cute. Anything's vulnerable like that. We also had a cartoon frog who wanted to have this animation as part of the story, and I had to readjust my expectations about cartoons and animations, and my gut reaction was, I don't want us to infantilize these frogs. I don't want us to make it look cute for the sake of having a cute... All frogs are cute by their very nature, but we don't want to give it characteristics that it doesn't have in order to reward the audience for watching. Because this frog is intrinsically valuable. It's cute in its own way. It's really interesting to look at, and it's a great charismatic looking frog without us further making it cuter, you know, without it giving it human expressions and those sorts of things. And Derek was really open to all of that, which was really great. And we were able to explore our options for animation as well. And then, of course, the other thing we had to do is we were really, really wary of going into the habitat of this frog, which is already threatened, and taking with us diseases and perhaps, you know, destroying habitat just by walking through the ponds and stuff. And this is some really delicate work out there. And we took an absolutely tiny crew. There were only 4 of us. And we were really careful not to, no, there were 5 of us. I can't count. That's why I had to leave science. And so we had to be really careful where we were standing, where we were treading. We didn't want to cause any disruption whatsoever. We asked for advice from people like Nick Kleeman. We said, we work with this frog. We know you work with this frog. Have you got any advice on moving about through its habitat, and what can we do to make sure the frogs stay happy but we still get our film? So we went out in January, and we went out in January because we know that the frogs are most likely to be active when it is warm and there's a bit of rain. So we chose a weekend in January that was likely to be good weather for us to be able to find the frogs, but that also that we were all free, because although there were only 5 of us, trying to nail down 5 busy adults in any given weekend is almost impossible. But we drove out to East Gippsland on the Friday, and we went out in the Friday evening to look for the frogs in the dark. We waited till after dark and went out to look for them. And then we went out on the Saturday to have a look at some habitat in the daylight, and also in the hope to see them in the daylight if that was possible. Unlikely, of course, but worth a try. And then on the Sunday, we went back to the forest to look for the drone that we'd lost, which is not quite the story of the film, but worth a mention anyway. And in fact, this picture here is we looked at this one part of the forest, and we said, don't think we'll go in there. It looks crazy dense and possibly a bit dangerous. And oh, no worries, we'll just fly the drone over it. And anyway, there we are, looking for the drone. So we went out to look for this frog. Danielle is a scientist that was out doing surveys, actually for something else in the forest of East Gippsland, when she heard the giant burrowing frog. And she recognised its call, and that frog is now being bred in captivity as an insurance population, and it's a really, really cool find. So we filmed a lot of me and Danielle moving through the forest, looking for the frog, listening for the frog, hoping to find it. We knew that the chances were pretty low of finding the frog in the daytime, but we get cool shots like this. So, it's always that balance between having something the audience wants to watch and actually telling the story of what it was that we were doing, which was looking for the giant burrowing frog. This was the animation that the very talented animator came up with, and it's got all of the characteristics that makes that for a cool looking frog, but it also looks like a cartoon, and I think they did a really, really good job of not compromising on the dignity of the frog, but at the same time appealing to the audience. So I was pretty chuffed with that. Danielle also went into the lab and talked a bit about chytrid as one of the things that threaten frogs. And that's obviously not a giant burrowing frog, that's an alpine tree frog. And she demonstrated swabbing for it as well. And of course we went at night to look for the frogs in the spot where Danielle had found them previously. So we thought that our chances of finding these frogs would be really high, and we'd be able to show the world this glorious frog, which is just stunning in the flesh, just absolutely amazing. Quite a big ask to find that frog, but when you've got somebody that's as talented a herpetologist as Danielle, given that nobody had found them in that area before, and yet she managed to find them, we thought our chances were good. Now, did we find them? I'm not going to tell you. You can watch it. It's on iView. The link's on the website. And I'll finish there. Thank you very much.